fépp lay fee.
sant yàlla.
looy xaar utal Wave nga scan nga fay te nag doo ci yokku dara.
Jar Oil Company stands tall as a trusted name in energy, keeping the Gambia moving with service stations across the country and a commitment to innovation and reliability. In Farafenni, Jar Group is reshaping our industrial landscape. The Jar Oil Cement Factory can produce up to 100,000 bags a day, reducing imports, creating jobs, and building a stronger Gambia brick by brick. And in the heart of the Central River region, Jar Farming Initiative is cultivating food security. With thousands of hectares under development and modern irrigation, Jar Farming is turning the Gambia's soil into abundance. Jar Group is more than a company. It is a vision of self-sufficiency, resilience, and progress. The Jar Group of companies, investing in industry, agriculture, and energy, building the Gambia's future today.
Africa is rising and business knows no borders. With Bloombank and PAPS, buying and selling across Africa is now effortless. Fast, secure, direct from your Bloombank account. One Africa, one connection, one heartbeat of opportunity, powered by Bloombank Africa. Bloombank Africa, in partnership with PAPS, connecting Africa, empowering you. Bloombank Africa, we make it happen.
Today, Coffee Time welcomes the presidential candidate of the Gambia's oldest political organization, the People's Progressive Party, and the woman guaranteed to be vice president if he wins. Saikou Sawo and Neneh Cheyassin join us together for the first time, carrying the mantle of a party that led the Gambia to independence from British colonial rule in 1965 and governed for 3 decades until Yaya Jammeh toppled the then president Sadauda Kairaba Jawara. The PPP building many of the institutions on which our democracy still flourishes today. But history also records that in 1994, as I said, the PPP was toppled in a military coup with corruption and nepotism cited by the young soldiers who seized power. Now, after more than 30 years out of government, the PPP seeks to reintroduce itself to Gambians as a force for renewal. So this morning, we explore how its candidates, president and vice president, intend to balance legacy with reform and how they hope to convince a new generation that the PPP deserves another chance at leadership. Saikou, welcome back to... no, I should start with the woman.
No,
they always say women first.
No, he's the head of the party.
So he's the head of the party. We start with that.
Yes.
Okay, so Saikou, welcome to Coffee Time.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for having us.
Good to have you back. Neneh, welcome to Coffee Time. Well, not for the first time, but first time in the flesh, live in the studio.
Yes.
Because you had an interesting conversation with Therese the last time.
Yes.
Yeah? Very good. So this is the first time both of you are appearing on Coffee Time together. What's the significance of this joint appearance?
Yes, it shows, strong leadership, partnership, and, it shows, women empowerment that, we've been championing, having both of us on the platform. And Neneh is a very strong, charismatic leader that connects very well with grassroots. A lot of young, Gambian females, connect with her and her philanthropic work. So, and we bring in a new style of politics that Gambia has never seen before.
You know what just crossed my mind? I called you Seka, but
Yes.
you're actually Kebea.
Yes, but it's fine. I'm Cheyassin's daughter.
Okay.
I'm proud to be his daughter.
Fantastic. So, what does this moment, represent for the PPP's legacy? And the future, of course.
And the future. It represents the 21st century. PPP recognizes that 58% of voters are women. Women need to be represented. And it gives me the voice to stand for women. And I think that's what differentiates the party now from before, and that's what differentiates our party from other running parties right now.
When you talk about, the PPP, it's history, that underlines it. So how do you intend to make that history resonate with voters, especially young voters?
For me, it resonates through 21st century ideas and thoughts. The way I've led my life should be an example of what we should expect. I think women should be represented. I think women issues should be dealt with. I don't feel like the present government has done a good job at that. They profess it, but by example, we have more women who have childbirth issues now than we did 10 years ago. We have more babies dying now.
Really?
Yes. 30% of the babies, and I continue to say this all the time, 30% of the babies born lose their lives because we don't have the proper treatments. 30% of premature babies die because we don't have enough incubators. We don't have enough training for our doctors. The nurses don't have the right equipment. I have been to hospitals where the babies take turns in incubators. How can a baby take a turn in an incubator when they need that for long production? So there are a lot of basic issues that Gambia is not caught up with. An average 7-month-old outside of our country dies. But in other countries, when you have a 30-week or 28-week-year-old baby, the chance of survival is 90%. But here it's less than 30%.
How would you solve that, Saikou, if you were to, succeed in the December 2026 elections?
Yes, we need healthcare reforms. I've said that over and over. Because...
But saying it is one thing, but, actually proving to people that, you have the wherewithal to bring about those reforms is another.
Yeah, because we have to be strategic about how we implement things in this country, and I believe in OKRs, which is objective and key results. So we have a lot of, health institutions that are dilapidated. They don't have enough equipment. They don't have adequate supplies. So when we talk about reforms, I'm talking about OKRs where it's end-to-end. It's like a full value chain. We're rehabilitating existing hospitals. We're solving, sourcing and supply issues, because right now there's no regulatory framework. You have people, within the institution that are selling to other pharmacy, which is absurd. And these are vulnerable people that are missing out on those medicine. A big, constituent like Brikama Area Council, they have hospitals there without gloves, right? So we need to fix all those issues. And then the backbone of all this is having competent Gambian specialists in the Gambia, surgeons that are well trained, that can serve our people. I've talked about the supply chain issue as well, and then building, and also we need equipment, adequate equipment. And, we're a population of less than 3 million people, so we have to make sure we have, enough ICUs, we have enough apparatus to take care of our citizens. I'm not saying, we're not Switzerland, we're not probably, they have over thousands of ICU beds, but at least the country of Gambia should have minimum 200 to 300 ICU beds across the region. Mm-hmm. And then we should also think about, infrastructure to connect, primary care, urgent care, and then large hospital centers. Mm-hmm. So when I talk about reforms, this is what we need. It needs to be end-to-end. It's not just, build hospitals and then forget about it.
This gloomy picture of our health situation that you paint this morning, is it something you people have seen for yourselves, or are you dependent on supporters of the party, feeding you?
These are things I've seen for myself. These are things I know people he has affected. I know at least 5 women that he has affected directly. I have someone really close to me that has worked for me for almost 5 years. She's lost 3 babies in 3 years because she tends to have her babies under 30 weeks, and it's always because of lung development. The last baby she had lived for 8 hours. She held the baby in her hand those 8 hours, and she lost the baby again. And these are simple things. I think for us, I've noticed, we open the centers, we bring the doctors, but there's no continuous training.
Oh, okay. It's a capacity.
It's the capacity issue. In terms of education and in terms of hospitalization, continuous training is what is needed. You need to put infrastructures in place where you have resources that provide continuous training for doctors with regards to medications, with regards to their training. Because even though the doctors are there, they are lacking in training. They when I'm there as a nurse, they don't have competent conversations with me, and I'm just a nurse. So if the doctor is saying, even when I want to do the work, I don't have the proper tools, I don't have the proper medications, I don't have enough support. And the other thing that proves my point, those that are in power, when they want to treat their family members or when their wives want to have babies, they travel outside of Gambia.
They do.
Yes, they don't stay here. So what does that say? The president last year, when his mother was sick, he flew her to Senegal for her treatment. And our tax dollars were spent. Our tax dollars, sorry. Balarma. Our tax dollars were spent. So for me, it shows that whether he accepts it or not, he knows the structure is broken.
Okay. So when you look at the budget, Saikou, the amount of money allocated to health, do you think it's enough? And if it's enough, why are we having all these problems? And if it's enough, if it's not enough, if you were to come, to office, how would you augment it?
Yeah, no, we don't have enough because if you look at how much we pay on, servicing our debt, the interest is a little higher than how much goes to healthcare.
Like definitely.
Yes,
so way higher.
Yes, exactly. So that's already a problem of its own, and it shows how incompetent the current administration is in terms of managing.
But if he were to come into office, you will be saddled with that debt stock.
Yes. So we have to find
and if you have to give 20% of your budget to servicing debt, the IMF and all these other, lenders will hold you by the throat.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we need to find ways to restructure our debt first, and then we need to make sure with every investment we do as Gambia, there's a return, there's an economic benefit. They keep screaming, oh, we're building 90 kilometers of roads, we're inaugurating X, Y, and Z. Yeah. But then it's
91 was the
91 kilometers. And then what is the budget for that? Almost $100 million, right? It costs almost $1 million for a kilometer of road. But then what is the economic benefit? Does it connect? Do we have like industrial zones? Do we have like export channels? For businesses to thrive, because it's an investment.
So when you build roads, you should consider these,
It should be linked to economic benefit. Okay. It's like, even
so infrastructure development is more than
just,
building.
No, it's not just building the road, because it's like, it's just blanket how they think, okay, we've built the road, but it doesn't connect nothing. There's no linkage. There's no economic benefit. So you spend 100 kilometers, you spend $100 million or more, or whatever the situation is, but then in 5 years, we don't have any ROI. Like, hey, this should generate $500 million based on new industries that are coming to Gambia, new gateway for opportunities. This is going to create 20,000 jobs because now we're going to have a processing center in LRR that is going to connect to CRR. We're going to have more industries come. That is not there. It's just, hey, 90 kilometers of road, that leads to nowhere. There's no connectivity, so there's no economic benefit. Okay. So once we start thinking strategically, right, we'll be able to restructure our debt, be able to pay our debt, because now we have economic benefit that can trickle down to the citizens. We need to make sure every policy represents the Gambians. It trickles down to the ordinary citizens.
Okay. We'll talk about, how you intend to start if you win,
And not to cut you off.
Yes, sure, go ahead.
This is something that bothers me personally. You say you're building roads. Before you build the roads, engineers need to build a sewage system. You built the roads, but where is the sewage going? You built the roads, where is the trash going? And infrastructure has to be built first before the road is built. So I see roads that were built. It's about to start raining again in July. There's going to be flooding everywhere. Last year, babies died in certain areas because the water didn't have anywhere to go. So it's not just building roads. And this is what has happened to this present government. They give us the basics. They give us crumbs, and they expect us as Gambians to accept the crumbs that we've been giving. I think for us Gambians, we deserve to demand better, but because this is our resources, one, it's our taxes, two, we need to ask the right questions. You've built the roads, but now then what? How does that affect me as a Gambian? The side roads we can't even use. So you've built the main roads as a show, but how do I get from the main road to my house? When it rains, you have mirrored. People call and say, I can't come to work because I cannot get out of my house. This is 21st century Gambia, wake up.
Although some, employers would argue that that's a typical Gambian attitude, even if it's just cloudy.
No, but it's the reality.
But it's the reality.
Some places get flooded so bad, and I've seen it firsthand.
We've seen it firsthand.
Because, when people call in, as an employer, I'm concerned, I really need to know the situation. And they're sending me videos. Like, hey, I need to work at least,
the person can only work because they are safe.
Yes,
exactly.
When there's flooding all over
when
the place,
there's flooding, you can't get out.
Especially
when there's history of people getting out and drowning because they can't control the amount of water that comes through.
You seem to be very concerned about the plight of women and children of this country. You find a way of bringing in, the safety of children, the safety of women in every question asked, which leads me to ask now, what strengths, does each of you bring to this ticket, and how do they complement each other?
For me, I think this is not how I started. My philanthropic work is what got me in the community. And I've seen firsthand how it's affecting women. I've seen firsthand how someone like me, the reason why I was successful is because when I lived in the United States, the government has a system that supports women. My first marriage, I was divorced. I was stuck with 3 children. I had to go back to school. I could not afford daycare. Guess what? I was able to take my paycheck to the social services, and based on my income, daycare was provided for my children. I was able to go back to school and get a nursing license, build a business that was able to create the life that I have. I feel like based on the amount of money Gambia borrows, we borrowed $1.6 billion in 8 years, dollars.
Oh, wow.
And in 51 years, the 2 combined presidents did not use that much money. It was $48 billion. So this 8 years, what have they done for women directly? Apart from giving us drums and sending us to cafes and giving us crumbs to start small businesses that provide feeding just for us and our families.
A $50 million development fund was recently launched.
That $15 million, I'm glad you brought it up. Because that $15 million...
Actually, 50
came from the people directly. Because there are 300 women who are under the NPP party. And they paid $250 to register.
They did?
They did.
Oh.
That $250 is for the 300,000 women that registered. It was $75 million. That $50 million that they gave those women came from the money that those women used to register to be a part of the party.
You know this for sure?
I know this for a fact. So they're using our own oil to fry us. And when we started asking questions of where that $50 million came from, no one could give an adequate answer because it came from the same women who paid for their ID cards. Yes, it is your money, Gambia. Everything they use to date and everything Barrow will use to date is going to be from the Gambian people. From the rice to the cooking oil to the sublé to the daily things that we need to survive.
You're suggesting that these are things they will be giving out very soon?
Oh, yes, it's coming. Oh. So you are willing to sell.
Do you have a mole in the NPP ranks?
I don't have a mole, but let's just say there are people in the system that give a damn. There are people in the system who are quietly waiting for a voice for the people of Gambia.
And giving a damn is knowing that something wrong is happening. And
something wrong is happening, and they're telling people
about
like me who have nothing to lose to talk about those things, to bring it up to people, and to make people aware. And you also have to understand, only 60% of us have graduated high school. The learning capacity and the mentality of the Gambian woman is what needs to change. If you sell your vote for that bag of rice, I want you to know you're selling 20 years. Because the debt we have now already, that $1.6 billion we have, the next 4 generations are going to have to pay for that. And if Barrow comes back another 5 years, if we have $1.6 billion in debt now, what do you think is going to happen? This man has no idea what he's doing. He's giving us no plan. There's no infrastructure in place that President Barrow can say, I run efficiently, and based on that, I should come back another 5 years. Yeah, you're talking about the roads?
Yeah, exactly.
The roads are very inefficient. Didn't Muna Dunda on the roads?
Well, we wouldn't call Leka. Why? Why, didn't in the Yokute?
Well, in the Yokute in 8 years. Now he's talking about building additional roads on top. It's more debt. Just like Saikou said, it's inefficient debt. You are building the roads, but how does the roads affect the average Gambian? Transportation is expensive. People are finding it hard to
just to interject to what I'm saying, there should be linkage to economic benefit.
Okay.
Because otherwise, we're just going to keep accumulating this debt.
Okay. And then so, Saikou, what strengths do you bring to this ticket?
I come from a corporate background. I was in the military as well, so the discipline is there. And I'm a person that is big. I also did consulting for big firms in America. I worked for T-Mobile. I did some consulting for Intel at some point in my career and other small businesses. So, in terms of creating efficiency, continuous improvement, being able to negotiate with leverage, having that corporate background, understanding contracts, and concession agreements, that would benefit Gambia, and then creating value. I'm a businessman, I'm an entrepreneur, I have several businesses that are successful, so I come with a lot of those strengths that would actually benefit Gambia. I know a good deal, I can call it a bad deal, and then a lot of institutions here, they're not running at full capacity. Like if you look at GAIPA, right? GAIPA should be like a transformation engine for Gambia, but right now it isn't.
What is it now?
It's more like, they're just a promotional agency for now, but we expect Gambia to be more like a deal closing institutions. They should be able to get rid of a lot of bottlenecks, that, investors are facing. Recently a journalist came with, certain partners in the Gambia, and, they were having so many back and forth. So we need to have, they need to have a clear roadmap. It should be a deal closing institution for Gambia. There's so much that can be done with GAIPA, but I see some inefficiencies that needs improvement. I'm not here to criticize what they're doing, but we can make it better. But it requires visionary leadership to be able to see things through.
And you are that visionary leader.
Yes, because I understand what value creation brings to the country. It brings, the economic hardship we're complaining about will be gone if we can create value.
Not as long as the situation in the Middle East continues, because we don't have petrol.
But that's why we need to be self-sufficient. We need to be independent.
We can't be self-sufficient when it comes to, petroleum products. We are
can't.
Told we have, but we haven't started,
we haven't started exploring. But when I say self-sufficient, I'm not even talking about the petrol. I'm talking about the people here in Gambia. Look at Singapore. In the 70s, this is a country that imported water from Malaysia. But look at, they invested in their people.
Don't forget that we have Dubai, huh?
Exactly. They invested in their people because they knew, hey, we need that human capital. We need our people to be able to graduate from high school straight into the factory, so we can start producing. This is how they're able to create their economy. And now they're the number one in the world. They have one of the best airlines. So we can do the same. We need people that are innovative, self-sufficient. So this is how you create value. It's in different ways. And then if the natural resources come, that even supplements what you're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before he moves ahead, I'm sorry I'm interjecting. I think
next time we'll just bring you alone.
I'm sorry I'm interjecting, but I think Saikou is very coy. I don't think he talks about himself enough. He's 37 years old. And the things Saikou has done in America in 13 years, it took me 20 years to accomplish. He graduated here, top of his class. Distinctions and grade 1s. He was able to go to America on full scholarship through education. Within 13 years, Saikou has not only worked in the military, opened a successful business, became a millionaire, self-made millionaire, built a life in America, and came back and invested in that in Gambia, and he's not expecting anything back. We need people that are educated. We need 21st century thinking. When Saikou and I decided to run together as a party, he built our website in one weekend.
He did?
He did it himself.
Mm-hmm.
He maintains our website. You need someone that knows what they're talking about. You need someone that represents Gambia and is not embarrassed when they open their mouth to talk. You need someone that can competently read before they sign. These are basic things that a leader should have that we as Gambia has taken for granted. We have incompetent leaders. We need people that are more educated than us. We need people that know better than us. We need people that have a proven track record of wealth. Gambia needs to stop hiring people that need to build a house for their mother, their cousin, their aunts before they build a house for a Gambian. We need people that have already shown that they are capable by the way they live. And we can both say that sitting here, that we've done that. We're coming to Gambia to create support, to get light-minded people like us that can take Gambia to the 21st century. Not someone that is going to say, I need to build a $20 million house in Fajara when I retire, or a leader that was renting, and now that he's been a minister, the last 5 years, he has 5 properties. No, we don't need people like that. We need people with proven track record. And Gambians.
Do you see that actually happening with our leadership? People who were renting and within 5 years.
We're not going to throw stones. Yes, we do.
So Peter, it's very obvious, right? With the corruption and scandals on a daily basis, it doesn't take rocket science to put 2 and 2 together. Certain things, it's left for folks to connect the dots. With the rampant corruption going on in this administration, obviously the funds are going somewhere. Some are staying in the Gambia and some are staying outside
How
the Gambia.
would you deal with corruption if you were entrusted with the leadership of this country after the 5th of December 2026?
Yeah, we need people to, declare what they have before, and then after they leave.
And that would start with you?
Yes. I think it has to be top-down approach. Anybody in a ministerial position, and we need to also get rid of leakages, within the system, and then how our procurement functions. There's a lot of kickbacks, favoritism, nepotism, and this is what is draining the country. And then we need to empower our people to show them, hey, hard work actually pays off. You don't have to steal. You don't have to work in certain government sector because there's so much benefits you can accumulate for yourself. Put the interest of the nation first. So those are some of the things, and we need a complete reform, of how business as usual is in the Gambia.
And on asset declaration, how would you approach it? Because we the last constitution that was rejected in the National Assembly, there was a proposal to declare your assets coming in, but going out, you don't have to declare anything. Meaning, if you are being considered for ministerial appointment, you would be obliged to declare your assets. But even after 30 years as a minister, if you were fired or you decided to retire or go out of office for whatever reason, you didn't have to declare your assets.
Yeah, that was designed by it was purposely designed like that, to protect the cabals, the people that are leeching, the grifters that are leeching off of the system. So
such an approach. What did it say to you?
I agree with Saikou 100%. It proved that the powers that be don't want to be held accountable after they leave. But a paper trail is really easy. So they better pray we don't come into power because everybody will be held accountable. We have no problems showing our assets before we take office because we have worked for what we've earned and we can stand by that. And we are not here because we want to make money. I'm not even going to say how much my income is because the average Gambian would not believe that. But we want to make sure.
You can whisper to me afterwards. And then I'll get in a few solicitation letters.
We want to make sure that those that are in the position of power are not only competent, but they're also held accountable. And that they actually do the job. There has to be a check and balance.